I've been meaning to make some videos and haven't because I've been so busy with everything. But you gotta start somewhere, right? This is Kennaydia Farms, and it is an idea I've been kicking around in my head for a decade, I think now. Been to a lot of other people's farms first, saw what they were doing, and trying to get my own ideas in gear. And the first thing I learned is, well, probably not the first thing, but eventually I learned going to other people's farms is that you really are subservient to the land. You might have all the ideas in the world, and the land's gonna have other ideas for you when you get there. So I put an offer on this property back in February, and didn't get it till June, midway through June. So very late start to the year. It's now December 15th. And when I first before I took possession of the property, I should say, my where I thought I was going to start was right here, right next to this water. It's a spring that comes through here and feeds this forest. And immediately my thoughts were tap that spring, get a good source of water going, and go from there. Well, anyway, between February and June, what happened was we had a severe drought nationwide. I don't know if it was global or not, but certainly in the United States and Canada, we had a severe drought in which, basically this wasn't here 6 months ago, 7 months ago. This was all dried out. There's a pond over that way that was completely dried out, and it was so thick that I couldn't even get to the actual creek on the property. Despite hours of trying, it was just so thick I couldn't navigate or find my way anywhere. So it ended up being a washout on getting to the creek. So I don't even know what kind of situation that was having in the middle of the summer. But it's December. Tennessee, we've been having rain. We have rainy winters, so we got water again. But I'm still so far away from getting here. And even though this is, I don't know, maybe 1,000 to 1,500 yards from what I've been working on for the past 6 months, that's just because of the status, the situation in this forest being so thick. I can't even get there yet. So anyway, let me show you what I have been working on. So one of the things that I've been working on is trailblazing. So about 6 months ago, or I should say around July, I managed to cut back to this spot right here. This is as far as I could go. And since then, I've been cutting a little bit every day and trying to clear out this area here, so that I can put in, I believe it's called a apiary or a beehive location. Bees, buzz. Just chopping down what I can every day, cut it a little bit and a little bit. A lot of blackberries, a lot of sumac, real sumac, not the poisonous kind. Coral berries, you can see some of these coral berries right here. Coral berries. and cutting it down to here. Did have to stop here for a while because I ran into some snakes, and I decided to give them the option to vacate on their own, which eventually they did. Coming down here. And part of the problem is you can only go so far every day because you have to clear out what you cut down, or else it just becomes so thick that you can't do anything. So I got to here, to the last place I was. I stopped because this ant hill here, I wanted to take care of that because you bust one of those ant hills open, and yeah, they're gonna get you, fire ants. So I want to clear this area out here. Originally my idea was to put a cabin here, but I've since, there's an old water tank here, but I've since then changed my mind. Not sure what I'm going to do with this area yet. We have all this area behind me, which you can't even, so thick you can't even see what I'm pointing at. This is actually, you're looking at a hill here, but want to clear all this out, and I think I'm going to grow grains on this hill. Not exactly sure yet, but basically just want to get rid of this thicket. Eventually I want to turn it into sort of like a park area, and put what I call the hay loft, or the hay shed theater, which will put a hay shed here with open sides with like tarps that come down where you can store hay, and then if you want to say have like a show and bands and stuff, you can put it there and people could sit up there on the hill and watch the show. Kind of a entertainment area, but yeah, it's really still very thick and take a very long time to clear out. So one of the things is I don't have a tractor or any kind of real tools. When I first got here, I had nothing. I mean, I had 2 shovels, a couple of rakes, some hedge trimmers that ran out of electricity, but I had no electricity. Yeah, I really didn't have much of anything. I didn't have a wheelbarrow or any of that when I first got here. And of course, I immediately broke one of the shovels digging the fire pit out, so I could start burning all this brush. And yeah, just you know, been acquiring stuff over time. One of the first things I got was a weed whacker, and I got a cheap weed whacker, and so that took me a long time just to get it fixed up to the point where I could really use it like a regular weed whacker. They're not really meant for this kind of stuff, but it's what I got. And the alternative is a machete, and that's not fast enough. I mean, it takes, I tried with the machete, and it's just too slow. It takes too long. You know, like one of the things I've been wanting to do here is kind of learn the way the pioneers would do it, but what they would do is they just set fire to the whole place, and that's not what I'm trying to do here. So yeah, it's slow going, but we'll get there eventually. So right here I'm working on the first garden. So this is garden area here I've been clearing out so that I can start planting something, anything. You know, Tennessee's has some pretty good laws when it comes to the whole homesteading agricultural thing, but they do have certain requirements that you have to hit. And I could just say, you know, I could just say this is all hunting property, but I'm really not much of a hunter. I have nothing against hunting, just don't do it. You know, maybe it's something I'll pick up here eventually, but at the moment, yeah. So I got to grow something, because right now all I've been doing is landscaping for 6 months. Give you an idea, you know, what this here looked like 6 months ago. So 6 months ago, that garden area looked like this. Okay, this is up to my chest here, my head in some places, and I mean, we're like really just, you can't even see where you are. It's just disorientating how thick it is. A lot of places on this farm are like this. It's just been unmanaged for years and years and years. Go over there, you can see that trail we were on earlier, or maybe you can't. Let me get way up there. I don't know if you can see it, but I mean, it's just insane how thick it is. I mean, like, I'm in here and like I just step into it for a second. I'm immediately caught up on blackberries. I can't even move right now because I'm caught up on blackberries. I gotta back up to be able to move. The blackberries here are super aggressive. These sumac trees here, which are not the poison sumac kind. Those are actually, poison sumac is not actually sumac. They just happen to look like sumac, so they're called that. This is just a regular old sumac. They're little scraggly trees, and they have these berries here. So, you know, one tree makes like 8 million little trees. And so the next thing you know, you're just completely overrun, which sucks. So I'm trying to cut down as many of those as possible. I could cut them all down, and if I just didn't do anything for like 3 years, it would look just like this again. So it's going to take several years of maintenance just to slow down the sumac population here. So this here is my tool shed, and this was a project. It took about a week of work just to build this thing with the help of my dad. It was a 2 to 3 man job, and there was 2 of us. Let's see, I don't know if it'll be oh, the camera adjusted good. So before I had this, all my stuff was just all over the ground. It was terrible. Plus a bunch of it was in my dad's garage, which is thanks, Dad. He paid for this. Bought it at Lowe's. It was just like a kit, and yeah, I mean, I could do a whole video on that, but it was a hassle, to say the least. It's not the greatest shed in the world, but it's a shed, and it keeps my stuff dry. If you go to my Instagram, you can see how I did the earthen floor and all that, because yeah, it's just on the ground, and then we got a plastic layer just as a moisture barrier, because I would come in here and it would be completely drenched just from the moisture from the ground coming up out of the ground in the morning, condensing. So this is the well house, and I added this door to it because this was all just boarded up. See how these sides are just boarded up like this? Well, the top comes off. Ugh, it's very heavy. And then you'd have to climb down inside to do anything to the well. Well, the guy who used to live here before me, he had disconnected the well, even though there's a switch where you can turn it on and off at the electrical box. He had the thing completely disconnected, and I climbed in here to reconnect the wires and broke the pipe, so the plastic pipe that was in there, and so I didn't even have water on here for months and months and months. Anyway, I finally get it all hooked up and fixed, and it turns out that it's been, since it has been used for years, and there's no pressure valve at the top, that between the dry rot and the lack of counter pressure for the bladder, this water tank just completely shat the bed after a couple of days. So this whole thing is going to be replaced, which means that all the work I did on here for the most part was for nothing other than a learning experience. So the next project, big project I'm working on, is we're going to replace this little well box with 8x8 building, and going to replace the tank and add a water softener and a water filter, because there's a lot of iron in the water from the well. I would say that the water from that spring is a lot cleaner than the water coming out of the well. Apparently 100 years ago, this whole area was strip mined, which is why it's so flat versus most of the other places in Tennessee. But the whole top of this mountain we're on top of a mountain, by the way, that's kind of important, I guess, was stripped. And so that's the reason why it's so flat up here, because Tennessee is notorious for being hilly. So this is the trailer. This was on the property when I got here. But this trailer was just a big old pile of rat poo. That's what it was. And there's an old septic tank out that way. And there had been no running water in here, so the whole thing was filled with methane gas. And me and my dad spent, I don't know, at least a month just tearing this place out and rebuilding it so that it's actually habitable. I'm like no joke, you would be in here for 5 minutes and you would vomit. You'd run out the door and vomit for being in here for 5 minutes. I know it's really kind of full of stuff right now. That's because this is eventually going to be an office, so I'll have a desk and stuff here, and this bed's going to end up going into the cabin, the first cabin that I build. So I'm lucky enough to have a dad who likes to build things. This roof over the trailer was not here when I bought the property. I paid for the materials, but my dad did 99.9% of the work on this thing. I would help him when he needed it, but you know, he had his idea, and I was like, go for it. Here, let's go to the store. I'll buy the parts. So yeah, so back here I still haven't cleaned this section of the trailer. So this is what the whole trailer looked like when I first got it. It wasn't all nice and white and clean and bleached. out like the other side is now. So I mean that took a week just to clean. That's the front side of the trailer, because it was just so overrun with moss and mold and mildew, and yeah, it was in real bad shape. Added painted, put some deck paint on here. Ran out, ran out of deck paint, so I still have more painting to do. But I have to move this furniture. And I'll show you how these. See these mice. These mice are still getting into here. So this is what the whole inside of the trailer looked like. And then added these steps here because I got sick of having to walk around the entire deck, down a ramp and around the deck every time I wanted to come over this side. Eventually this fence here is all going to come down and go around the garden area out there. So yeah. There's still a lot of junk on the ground. I still have a lot of organizing to do. But my time is limited, unfortunately. So, one of my big holdups has been the amount of hours I've been pulling at work, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to afford to buy 81 acres outright. And you might say, well, why did you buy so much land? Really, that's not that much. And let me explain why. Originally, my idea was just to get a small place, a couple of acres, start there, build it up, flip it, get a bigger place, so on and so forth. But because of the way that the Tennessee laws work with agricultural properties and the tax benefits you get from them, I wasn't able to do that. They have a minimum of 15 acres that have to be actively engaged in agriculture. So if you figure, if you take your 1 acre homestead area, and then you go out beyond that, you have to have another 15 acres on top of that. That's 16 acres. And that would have to be 100% completely engaged in agriculture in one way or another. That's why a lot of people do cows, because they can say, "Oh, the cows are grazing that area." They don't actually have to do the work of planting anything. I mean, yeah, and not to say that there's no work involved in cattle. There certainly is, but you know, I'm primarily a forest property. I'm trying to do this blend of forest and farming together. They call them forest farms. I don't know why they came up with that name, but anyway, it's a forest farm, and I want to do some focuses on agricultural tourism and other things. There's a lot of things I want to get done, and to be able to do that stuff, with a smaller property. If I was in another state besides Tennessee, if I could get a smaller property, say if I was in Oregon or something, I would have been able to, grow marijuana, or hemp or something, and make a bunch of money that what I could use to go into building up the land, so on and so forth. Tennessee obviously has no marijuana laws that would allow me to do that. And I was going to do industrial hemp was my plan, CBD, because that is legal. But unfortunately, and I don't want to go too much into politics here, But when Trump left office and Biden came in, it became much more difficult to participate in industrial hemp. Now, if I was in a green state where I could grow marijuana, federal government wouldn't care. But since I'm in a red state, they are cracking down on the industrial hemp farmers because, that's what the government does. They're always dicks. It doesn't matter who's in power. Somebody's being a dick to somebody. Let's put it that way. And Biden administration, whether that's being run by him or somebody else, has decided to be a dick to the industrial hemp industry. And so that was out. It's not going to happen. Not until there's a change in the policies at the federal level, which is a bummer. So I'm not going to be able to get into the CBD game next year. So, looking at this property, getting back to why 80 acres, I have to come up with other things, and I'm not going to be able to grow, an acre or two of hemp and make money. I'm going to have to be much more aggressive when it comes to the agriculture. And not only that, they have this system in place with the taxes that's designed to keep you from flipping. Tennessee doesn't want people to come in, buy farm property, agricultural property, flip it and make a buck. They're very much against that. So basically, if you buy agricultural property in Tennessee, you're going to be there till you die, which is the situation I knew I was getting myself into when I bought the property, which is why I decided to go so big. Unfortunately, that means I didn't have enough money to buy it. I only had about a third of the money I needed to purchase the land, and so I had to borrow the other 2/3 from an agricultural lender, which is something we can get into in a different episode. But to make a long story short, I have a debt I have to pay, and right now this property isn't making enough money. In fact, it's not making any money at all. Hopefully next year I'll be making some money off of the property, but right now it's just not happening. There's just too much work to get it to a point to make it profitable, just because of how overrun and abandoned it's been. So that means I have to work, and I operate a forklift 3 or 4 days out of the week, and I work full time, which means that I have 12-hour shifts. So that means if I'm working 3 days, I'm putting in 36 hours. If I'm working 4 days, I'm putting in 48 hours. And that leaves me 2 or 3 days where I get to come out here and do work. And I tell you, I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted before I even get here. And after 2 or 3 days, I'm finally feeling good about it again, because I'm out in nature and I'm doing work that I enjoy. And then it's time. By the time I'm ready to really start cooking and getting work done here, I gotta go back to work for the man, which has been a huge impedance. We'll do another video about banks and mortgages and that stuff here eventually, but I don't want to go too much into it. Long story short, money sucks. I hate it, but we live on a planet that's owned by other people, so that's the way it works. Until you can get yourself into the black, as they say, out of the blue and into the black, or out of the red and into the black. I don't know. one of them's an accounting term and the other one's a Neil Young song. So here is an area that's been cleared, sort of. There's still a lot of this kudzu all over the ground, but cleared out this area. You still have some more clearing to do, but this is going to be the site of the first cabin. So I don't know if you can see down at the end of the path, there's the office. So it's not so far away that we can't run electricity out here, but that would be very expensive in terms of wiring and everything. Probably going to build the cabin with the ability to have electricity, but for the most part it's going to be running on solar power. And I have this thing that I've been wanting to do with the DC powered house. So this first cabin will be kind of experimental, but it'll also have some of the features of modernity built into it. I'm going to call it the AC/DC house, because it'll run on DC for solar, but eventually we'll hook up AC electricity to it as well. So it'll have both AC and DC. As we go further down the way here, we'll probably be moving away from the alternating current and sticking with the direct current, because that's another video for another time. We'll talk about electricity. But right across the way here, show you the last thing in the video here, and we'll call it good for now. A quick introduction to Kennaydia Farms. So when I first got here, this was how I pooped. I got the bucket upside down because I'm not using this right now. This is going to be eventually. This is going to be the location of the second outhouse. I'm going to show you the first outhouse here. Come back and down the poop trail. Do 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 do. So you don't really have any idea how long things are going to take till you start doing it. You're like, oh, I'll have that done in a couple of hours. That won't be a problem at all. And then you actually start doing it. So here's our manure composter. So this thing is pretty basic. We got some 2 by 3. We have 2x3s here that we created a box crate frame, whatever you want to call it, and then chicken wire. Allows for aeration and holds everything in. Down here we have our buckets get emptied here, and just to get the old compost thing going, jump started, I got a bunch of old logs that have mycelium already growing in it, rotten logs that I put in here, just so that that'll eventually, that'll start the decomposition process. Eventually we'll have, when it gets up high enough, I'll add some earthworms, night crawlers in there, and that'll help break it down. And again, all this is all stuff that I had to clear it all out. You can see where it turns from clear to not clear. That's the fallen log here that I used to jumpstart the compost bin, which brings us to the outhouse. And one bucket ready to go there. You open this up, and there's bucket in there. Basically, just so it's easy to open it up, take it right to the composter. This is going to be added in a bit. We're going to add just for people who have to sit down and urinate. I'm not going to gender anybody, but that's going to go on the left here where I have all my books at the moment. So that'll be a sit-down urinator. And then on this side is for pooping, silly. So yeah, and then this little thing here, and we got the little magnet screen. The bottoms are screened in, the underside's screened in. We have screens there, but because it's winter, I got tarps over them. But in the summer, those open up and provide some fresh air in there. And yeah, and there it is. It's got a little light that comes on at night. It's level, it's solid. In fact, for a tornado was to come through here, that's probably the best place you could be, is in that outhouse. That's how crazy solid that thing is. I can't believe how solid I made that. Probably way more solid than it needed to be. But you know, yeah, it's, you know, price of wood and everything now is outrageous. I spent way too much on this thing. It's probably like $300 or more on that outhouse. Way too much money. Today I've got some lilies that I'm planting all along the edges here of the path going to the outhouse. So you got some nice flowers and stuff that you see as you approach, you know, the poo station, and maybe you know, help with the I don't think there shouldn't be a scent, because the poo gets covered in sawdust, and it really doesn't stink. It's only the reason why I'm doing the separate pee area is because you know, that's one thing I've noticed at other farms I've been, is urinating in those buckets is what stinks. It's not the poop. The poop, once you cover it in sawdust, you can't smell it all. But people urinating in those buckets, it turns it into like this soup, and it's totally gross, which is why I'm going to have a separate system for urine, where it's just going to be a funnel, and that funnel is going to go into a hose, and that's going to go out into the trees areas there and just go into the ground where it's supposed to. You know, just like how people who stand up and pee do it. So yeah, that is that's Kennaydia Farms, year 0. I guess you could call it. 2001, 6 months. 6 months to get to Kennaydia Farms. Oh, I should show you the front. Let's do that. Let's finish the video by showing you our entrance. So, out front here is my neighbor Rick's farm. I'll have to do a video showing you his place. His place is real nice. And that's my other neighbor there. I have to look up what his name is on my phone. He talks to me more often, but I only got his name once. Anyway, he's got cows over there. The city's been putting in water along this road here. You can see where they trenched up the road. And I don't know. So I don't know what's going on with this. It's a well head or something. Every time I come out here, it's more and more smashed. I don't know who's doing it. them or what. But yeah, it totally dug up my driveway here, and didn't replace the gravel or anything. It was a big mud hole, and now I have no idea what's going on with this here. It was more together yesterday. Somebody ran over it or something. I have no idea. But anyway, had to put up the mailbox with address, numbers, and stuff. Still not getting any of my mail. Still not getting any of my mail. I went and filled out one of those rural delivery forms at the post office and everything. I don't know. Maybe I got to put up a big sign that says, "Hey, mailman," right here. Added that gate. That's a new gate. In addition to that little nonsense there, somebody seems to have been tearing up my fence because there was fencing here, and this is all gone. I don't know what's up with that. I doubt the wind blew a barbed wire off a pole. And then over here, I think maybe my barbed wire over here got ripped out when they were trenching the ground here to put in that water line. Yeah. But here's my little sign, little clip art. But yeah, Kennaydia Farms. Yeah, so I guess I'm gonna work on fixing my fence today, because yeah, it's really bad. It's every time I come out here, it's more and more torn down. So I have to look into it. Anyway, that's the tour. Kennaydia Farms, something to do every day. Nothing ever gets done. We'll get there eventually.